Okay, so good morning.
Morning to you.
It is the 18th of January 2015, and we are with Shmuel.
Miller.
Shmuel.
Miller, or Mueller in English.
How would you spell it in Hebrew? Mem
Yud Lamed Resh.
Lamed Resh. At your house in Kfar Shmaryahu, Rehova Oranim 44. 44. And this is our first meeting with our interview, and I'm going to ask you to tell me when and where you were born, and what kind of household you grew up in.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So please.
So, start again?
Yeah.
Okay. I was born in Tianjin, China, in December 25th, 1928, Christmas Day. We lived, had a family of four, my elder sister, my parents, and with us lived my grandmother, and I had a number of aunts and uncles, all from my mother's side, who came from Russia. My father, who had arrived from Poland, which was part of Russia at that time, and my father came to China in 1905 together with Trumpeldor, but Poland at that time was part of Russia, so the language at home was Russian. Like in China, all the households had a cook, a boy who used to clean the house, and the children had an ama, a nurse. And therefore, till the age of 5, was more or less till 5, I could only speak Chinese, the language of my ama. And then of course at home, Russian was a language. Yiddish was spoken as to cover, not to tell me their secrets. They spoke Yiddish. And that's it. That's why I grew up.
So let's go back to your roots a little bit before we get to you. Tell me a little bit about your mother and your father. Where were they from? Their names, your mother's maiden name. Let's start with your mother.
My mother's maiden name was Schechter. Her name was Haya, Anya, they called her in Russian. She was born in Russia, in a small town somewhere in the Saratov area. And she came to China with her parents as a young girl during the Russian Revolution. She must have been 15 or 16 at that time. She had a sister, a younger sister, and a younger brother. And they came and settled in a town called Harbin in China, where most of the Jews from Russia came.
So they actually escaped the revolution in 1905? Is that they fled?
No. My mother came in 1917, during the Communist Revolution, not the 1905 revolution. My father was born in Poland, in Warsaw, which was part of Russia at the time he was born, in 1892 or 93. And he came to China in approximately early 1905 to 1910, somewhere around then. And he stayed in China till he came to Israel, which was 1951 or 52.
Why? Tell me about, I don't know anything about the Jewish Chinese community.
Oh.
Like, I don't know anything about it.
It was a community that came to China in the early 20th century, around 19. And the Russians were building a Trans-Siberian Railroad which ran through China from Manchuria to Vladivostok, and ran through China, and a lot of Russians worked on the railroad. a lot of Jews came with these Russian settlers who were building the railroad, and most of them came to Harbin. So in Harbin there was a Jewish population of some 35,000 people. Sorry that I have to...
Okay, Sam. We're going to continue.
Okay.
Yes.
Now you got it? The collect? You're okay?
Very good.
Wear your glasses.
I'm good. I'm good.
This is American expression, I'm good. The English say I'm well.
Wow. Okay, so you were explaining to me about how the Jews got to China, and basically...
I was born there.
You were born in China. So your father came to China in a very young age.
My father was young. His family had a business of rail ties, wooden rail ties. And he was sent to represent the family business in Harbin, where they were building the railroad at that time. So he was there, but in the end he was actually a CPA. He was a bookkeeper, a chartered public accountant. And most of his life he worked as an accountant.
As an accountant?
Yeah. Even when he came to Israel, he worked as an accountant.
And what was your father's name?
My father's name was Saul.
Saul. And your mother's name, Anna?
Anna.
Correct?
Yeah.
And is it Miller or Muller?
It was Mueller, but the E and the U in English is like the I in Russian. The Russian U is I. And so Mueller, and people say Miller. So, but the name of my passport is Mueller in English and Miller in Hebrew.
Okay. And so your family is Russian, Polish background?
Russian. Although my father spoke Polish, and after the war, and that's how I came to Israel actually, I did have a Polish passport. Because most of the Jews in China were of Russian origin. Okay. In 1938, when the trouble started in Europe, a lot of refugees came there was a Chinese consul who gave visas to Jews to Shanghai. I don't remember the exact number, but somewhere about 20,000-30,000 Jewish refugees came through China. Pardon?
Do you remember that?
Oh, of course. I was already grown up.
Okay, so I'm going to take you back. You have an older sister?
I have an older sister.
What is her name?
Sarah.
Sarah. And you're two children, and you live with your grandmother also lives with you.
Yeah.
And it seems like you guys live kind of a comfortable life.
Very comfortable.
Very comfortable.
We weren't rich, but we were well off.
Well off. You have a cook, you have a gardener,
the whole thing.
The whole thing. Now, what kind of household are you raised in? Is your house, is it Zionistic? Is it kosher? Is it every Saturday
no.
synagogue?
No, my grandmother used to take me to the Bet Knesset.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to take me to Bet Knesset. My father didn't go to synagogue. He never went to synagogue. He was not an atheist, but he was not a religious person. Although he knew the Bible and the Jewish law very well, because he was from a Polish background, a Russian background. But we were Jewish, but I don't know if we could say very Zionist.
Okay.
But at a very early age, when I was 6 or 7, I joined Baytara. There was a Baytara in China. That was the only youth organization in my city, in Tianjin, was the only youth organization was Baytara. And it was...
What age did you...
6, 7, something like that. And it was sort of a scout clubs and scout patent along the British Scouts. But of course we had Zionists, instruction, Palestine, Israel, Palestine. There was no Israel. And I suppose that was the reason for my Zionist leanings and my intention as a young man yet to come to Israel. I studied in an English school.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I want. I want to ask you a little bit more about Baytara, since we're speaking about Baytara. How do you join Baytara? Is it do your parents send you, or you went there because it was the only thing?
Many of the Jewish kids went to Baytara as a Jewish organization. It was the only Jewish youth organization in town. And all my friends were in Baytara, and I went to Baytara.
So it wasn't out of ideological reasons that your parents sent you
I don't think so. Frankly speaking, I don't think there was any ideological background. Baytara suited the Siberian Russian mentality more than anything else. Most of the Jews in China were from Siberian extraction. They were, because Siberia is close to Russia. And tough guys, forward-looking, honest people, hardworking. And Baytara was formed in China in the 20s, early 20s. And a lot of actually Jews who were quite famous in Zionist history came to Israel from China.
Like who?
And in fact, at one time, after David or before David Raziel was Mifaked Etzel, there was a fellow by the name of Bitker. And Bitker, very few people know about. Bitker was from China, actually. People like Mordechai Olmert, father of Ehud Olmert, Eliyahu Lankin, the Mifaked of the Altalena, they all came from China, and that was always sort of the young fellows like us. We looked to.
So you looked up to them, and also probably Trumpeldor and Jabotinsky. They were like.
Jabotinsky was our Jabotinsky nash Gерой, we used to sing in Russian. Jabotinsky is our hero.
Can you sing it?
Jabotinsky nash Gерой, и в него мы верим. That was so actually. I didn't know that Mapai existed or anything else existed until...
Probably until you got here.
Yeah, more or less until I got here. When I got to Shanghai, first time I came to Shanghai, there were also other Zionist streams. There was Hapoel Hatzair, etc. But in Tianjin, we only had Baytara, that's it.
How do you spell the name of the city in English?
T-I-N...
Yeah.
No, sorry. T-I-A-N-J-I-N. N-J-I-N. That's how they spell it now.
Okay.
In my time, it was spelled T-I-E-N, T-S-N, T-S-I-N, different...
Now, is your sister also belong to Baytara, or
yes?
Yeah.
She was
So in
but she was in Baytara a very short time.
Okay. So you have like youth movements there. It's very social. Are you dressed up in the uniforms?
yes. We had a Baytara uniform, certainly so. Brown shirts, brown pants. We had a lot of sports activity with a good sport team. In fact, our volleyball team was one of the best teams, and that team was the best team in China. We had a football team, we had tennis players, we had ping pong players. It was very sport-oriented also. We had a lot of sports activities.
And do you know approximately what the Jewish community was in your city, in your town?
We were at the highest point. They say there were 3,500 Jews in Tianjin. At my time, about my time, there was about 2,000, 2,500 That's about the average Jewish population. But in China, in our city, we had a Jewish club, we had a synagogue, we had a Gemilas Chesed, we had a youth movement, we have a bank. There were all the Bureau Society, there were all the facilities of Judaism in a small town. It's remarkable that such a, the synagogue actually still is there. All other buildings have disappeared, but the building of the synagogue is still there, and still has a Star of David on the windows. It's been changed to many things, but it's still there. It's still in Tinsin.
And so the only social group for kids is Baytara.
The only social was Baytara. For the youth movement, and as I said, it was styled along the lines of a scout movement. We had.
Did you grow up in a house, for example? Did you guys celebrate the high holidays?
Oh yes, oh yes.
Was your
my grandmother lived with us till 1937. In 1937, with her other children, with her other daughter, my mother's sister, and my uncle, who was my mother's sister was a pianist. She was a piano teacher, and my uncle was an engineer. In 1937, they went back to the Soviet Union. There was at one time that belief in the theory of young people, of intellectual people who thought that the Soviet Union was a place to go. Unfortunately, my uncle was put in a prison camp and died straight afterward because they said he was a spy. My aunt divorced and remarried, and I met her child only in 1990, 1995, something like that. Never any communications with them for nearly 50 years.
Crazy. That is absolutely insane.
My grandmother used to correspond with us, but through posta restante, the post office. We never had their address, so I had difficulty locating my cousin after the Israel and Russia renewed their relationship in the
91.
Huh?
90, I think.
90 something.
Yeah. After the fall of the Soviet Union, 91. I want to go back to your childhood in China. What kind of school did you go to?
I went to Tinsin Grammar School. It was called Tinsin Grammar School. It was an English school, completely English speaking.
English like British English?
British. It was a British school, Tinsin Grammar School. In Tianjin, it was a treaty port. In Tianjin, being a treaty port, there was a British concession, the French concession, the German concession,
Sure.
The Italian concession, the Japanese concession. Most of the Jews lived in the British concession.
Just like you have in Jerusalem, you have the German colony, the Greek colony.
No, but in China, after the treaty port was, when China was conquered by the foreign powers,
Sure.
they gave up certain rights. And the British concession in Tianjin was the British police and British officialdom and no Chinese influence.
You kind of lived in a bubble, basically.
More or less.
Yeah.
The fact is that very few people, foreigners in China at that time, learned Chinese. We spoke our own languages. Let's say I learned Chinese because with the kids I used to play, and then when I finished school, it was during the World War, so I studied Chinese with a teacher. But basically, we didn't study Chinese in school. As a foreign language in school, it was French. Chinese was not studied. In my class, China, there were 2 or 3 Chinese people, Chinese kids, but they were from the very rich and important families. I remember one name is Chang and one is Cheng. They were good football players. I remember that. But we didn't associate ourselves. So I studied in the English school, and the students were prepared for the Cambridge examinations. Examination papers used to come from Cambridge, and the students would take the examination. They would be sent back to England and checked, and people. So actually, a graduate of the Tinsel Grammar School could go to any English university, that national degrees. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but the school was closed down during the war. When the war broke out between Japan and the Allies, the United States, England, in December of 41, the school was closed. The Japanese occupied the school was closed, and I went over to the Tinsel Jewish school. There was a Jewish school who had the same curriculum as the grammar school and prepared for the same curriculum. But I finished the Jewish school, Tinsel Jewish school, where we studied a little bit of Hebrew, and the foreign language is Russian, not Chinese, and not French, but still.
Do you guys in your house, do you guys have the Keren Kayemet Tzedakah box?
We had the box, but not in the house.
Okay.
I don't remember. There were the boxes here and there, I remember them. But we didn't have a mezuzah on the house. No, I didn't have a mezuzah on the house.
And was the house kosher?
House was not kosher.
Not kosher.
Not kosher, but my grandmother, on Pesach, we used to change the plates. That as long as my grandmother was there. My grandmother was more kosher or more than my parents were.
Okay.
But after that,
And were your parents, would you say that they were successful in what they did in their careers?
My father was a well-known bookkeeper, and he worked as such most of the time. Till the Depression, he worked for an American firm, and then because of the Depression, the firm was closed. After that, he worked in different industries. My mother was a housewife. She never worked.
And what's the age difference between you and your sister?
5 years.
5 years. Okay.
5 years. My sister passed away 2 years ago.
2 years ago. And for the record, her name was Sarah, is that correct?
Pardon?
Sarah. Okay. So you are born in 1928, right when the Depression starts, basically, kind of, plus, minus.
Well, I don't remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember that.
Do you remember?
I remember my Zionist first feelings was with the uprising in 37 and...
Okay. That's exactly what I was going to ask you. When was the first moment that you can remember?
What was it? Shlomo ben Yosef, and at that time, and he was a Bitari, and we were Bitarim, and that was maybe the first time also at my age, I was 36, that means I was 7, 8 already. I was in the Bitar already, and the riots in 36 were the first things sort of that I realized of a Jewish state. And you know, in the English school you used to sing hymns, and there's one hymn that says, "We shall build Jerusalem on England's green and pleasant hills." You know, that's.
No, can you sing it for me? Can you sing it for me?
No, not with my voice.
What is this song?
It is. It's one of the. We shall build Jerusalem on England's green and pleasant hills. I remember that very much, and I thought to myself, well, you build Jerusalem. Jerusalem is mine, not yours, not an English. So there was no real anti-Semitism. I don't really remember anti-Semitism. The Chinese are not anti-Semites. They don't know. They were anti-foreigners, but not anti-Semites. And we did have a Russian colony, like the Jewish colony. There was a Russian colony, white Russians who had fled from the Soviet Union. However, we were both bigger colony and a stronger colony. So if anybody would say to any kid, "Hey, you dirty Jew," or something like that, he would be beaten up. So they stopped very soon. We said, okay, how old is he? 10 years old. Okay, Yankele, you're 10 years old, go and beat him up. And then the guy came, and he is 17 years old. Okay, Sam, go and beat him up. So there was no...
Do you remember some quarrels like that happened?
Oh, I remember beating up a Russian for saying it to somebody that he's a dirty Jew or something like that. That is true. We had boxing classes and Baytara. We had, as I said, we were very associated with different type of sports. So there was peace in that area. We were the stronger majority.
So it wasn't like the Jews in Europe.
No, not even. We didn't understand. We were surprised. I mean, we only heard of the. You must remember, we were occupied by the Japanese, and when the Japanese occupied China, all the radio long. Would you do me a favor and get me that telephone? No, yeah. Shalom.
Do you remember when these riots started in Palestine in 1936?
1936, yeah.
Because these were very serious
riots. But this was, we knew about it in China. There was newspapers at that time. There was still no, Japanese still were not there. There was still,
right.
So we knew about it, and I remember as a kid we considered it the war, sort of we're at war, you know. I won't say we understood the background, but we knew there was some trouble.
Your kids. Yeah.
1908, 7, 8 years old.
36 to 39 was the
36.
Yeah, they started in 36. Now, do you remember, because this is a question that we ask a lot of people, especially if they were affiliated with Baytara. Do you remember the whole ordeal of Shlomo ben Yosef?
Oh yes, clearly.
Can you tell me what you remember about it and where you
I'll tell you something, something interesting maybe.
Because out of all the people that we've interviewed, a lot of people have talked about Shlomo ben Yosef, but nobody talked about Shlomo ben Yosef from a perspective of the Chinese side.
Oh,
so I'm very interested in this.
I'll tell you, let me go back a little bit. You're asking me questions that I need to make some digging.
Sure.
In the English school, and I was still in the English school at that time, they used to let out a magazine, the Old Grammarian, twice a year. And in the school.
Yeah.
And one of the elder pupils, he must have been 36, he was with my sister in the same class, a very gifted boy who wrote very well. In fact, afterwards he was a writer or journalist or something like that. He wrote an article on Ben Yosef, a very touching article on Ben Yosef, which was published in the Grammarian, with the English school. And the editor's note was said, although we don't necessarily agree with what is said in this article, it's written so well that we printed it. And there was, very stirring how he went to the hills and shot and this. And so Shlomo ben Yosef was for us at that time a hero and somebody to copy. And I think that was part of the Zionist influence in Baytara, outside of the scouts and hiking and building and usual activities was there. I think that may have been the spark that led us to the youth to a Zionist more how would I say, more radical activities in Zionism. However, China was occupied by the Japanese during the war. We didn't have news, we didn't know what was going on in the Western world. We heard of the Holocaust only after the war ended.
Of course.
War ended with
Another thing I want to talk to you about, which is around the same time of Shlomo ben Yosef, maybe a year or two after, in the late 30s, I would say 37, 38, even 39, there are tons of Jewish refugees coming from Europe before the war to China.
That's right.
Do you remember this happening? Do you remember people
course.
talking about it? Do you remember?
Of course, we knew that. As I said, till 41, when the Japanese came, we did get news from the Western world. Most of the refugees from Europe went to Shanghai.
Right.
Nonetheless, I think that in our town, I remember some kids who were refugees. There must have been maybe 20 families or 30 families who came to.
That's enough to have an impact.
Yeah. So there was a play that was in Baytara. You are refugees from Europe. You lost your friends and home, and you have come to China, and we're our brothers, or something like that. You're welcome home, or something like that. There was, we accepted them, and they were accepted in the society. Although our people, we spoke Russian. Between ourselves, even as kids, my language was Russian and English. In fact, when on my way to Israel, I was with my friend Arya Marinsky, ex-lawyer, well known here. We were in a dining car on a train from Paris to Italy. And we were eating and talking, and one fellow came up to us. He said, "Sorry, gentlemen, I'm a linguist by trade. What language are you speaking? It seems Slavic, and there's some English." So we're speaking English. No, he said, not yet speaking English. He said, maybe we're using Russian. So we used to speak Russian, throw in English words or English and throw in Russian words.
Mix it up.
Mix it up.
A lot of the Russian immigrants today in Israel that came here 20 years ago,
they speak
Russian, but
Hebrew.
they'll be like, "Shto takoye kabel marich." You know, or like they'll be in this.
That was true with us also.
So it was like,
until now, the small amount of friends that I have who were from China, still have friends who grew up with me some 80 years or something like that, 85 years.
Sure.
We speak a mixture of Russian, English, and Hebrew, of course, now.
Okay, yeah. So.
Because I was, at that time, although English always was a language that I was more fluent in.
But you spoke Russian to your parents?
Russian, only Russian.
Russian to your parents?
Both my parents spoke English, but we spoke Russian at home. Russian to... My wife is also from Harbin. My wife is also from China.
Really?
Yeah, she's from Harbin, where the Jews originally settled in China was Harbin, because my parents also came through Harbin.
And what year did she come to Palestine?
To Israel. She came to Israel. She came in 1949 already. 1949.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to kind of sum up this part that we talked about of your childhood. So basically, your childhood is in a very secure place, very small community.
Small community, there were no problem, even during the war.
We're going to get to the war in a second. Yeah. What about your bar mitzvah? Do you remember your bar mitzvah?
Yes, I remember my bar mitzvah. Of course I remember my bar mitzvah. My bar mitzvah was the first bar mitzvah after the Japanese occupation of China. My bar mitzvah was in January of 1942, and the Japanese Allied War began in December of 1941, if you'll recall. So in the synagogue, my bar mitzvah was the first. And I remember even my mafter, to a certain degree, with Melech David, with Baba Yamim. And okay, this was the usual procedure. All the Jewish boys in China, all of us had our bar mitzvah and went to the Torah. There was a synagogue. As I said, the synagogue was the centerpiece. After my bar mitzvah, I used to be caught in the street on Friday to go to make a minute. By the year, they still pulled me to the synagogue. Because I didn't go to the synagogue. I go to the synagogue on Pesach to play nuts. And on the
this whole time you were still in Baytara also?
All the time. I Baytara till I came to Israel, even in Israel. Yeah. But now I'm not Likud anymore. But that's
another story. That's a whole different story. But I want to ask you about, when does the Second World War start for you? Does it start in 1939 or does it start in 1941?
Two world wars started for me. Okay. In 1939 it started because I was in a British school, right, and Britain went to war. So I remember very well most of the incidents of war, Churchill's speeches, what he said, there were never so many who owed so much to so few. And I remember the Battle of the HMS Hood. Dunkirk and all this. I was very interested in the war, also because the war broke out with Germany and Poland, and I was a Polish citizen.
Sort of. You were a Polish citizen, yeah.
I was a Polish citizen. We were Polish citizens. Most of the Jews in Russia, most of the Jews in China had Russian citizenship, Soviet. They had to take on Soviet citizenship. Fortunately for me, and that's how I could come to Israel easier than anybody else, is that I had Polish citizenship. My father being born in Poland, although it was part of Russia at that time, nonetheless, he got a Polish passport. So we were Polish citizenship, okay. And Poland, the Japanese had the main enemies, which were the English and the Americans, the French, and the semi-enemies, which were the Dutch, etc., and the friendly enemies, which were the
Poland. Yeah. So you remember the beginning of the war in 1939 from a perspective of
the war started when there was a flood in China. In Tianjin, there was a flood in 1939, and the war started. I remember when the war started, we had a newspaper when it was still flooded, because our house we had a two-story house. The first floor was flooded, and everybody lived on the second story. Of course, the beginning of the Japanese war.
We're going to talk about that in a sec.
So we were aware. We were aware.
The war broke out, but it's far away.
It was far away. There'll always be England. England shall be free.
And then in 1941.
41.
Do you remember? What's your first memory of you saying to yourself, "Oh my God, the war is right here now"?
Well, I'll tell you. That's quite interesting because I remember it very well. As I said, I was in a British school, and on that day, which was a Monday in China, I was going to school. And while I was going to school, I saw Japanese soldiers running around because I passed the British barracks. Japanese soldiers and didn't understand what was going on. And we came to school, and I was on the balcony on the school, looking out the street, and Japanese soldiers came and closed the gates and came in and said, "Nobody moves from here." That was my first understanding, and although I was still a child and still young, what was that, 41? I must have been just before my bar mitzvah, actually. I was 12, 13, nearly 13. I realized that the war has begun and that there may be problems. However, I must say honestly, I lived through the war without really suffering anything. There was no bombing, and there was no shortage of food, and there was no bad treatment of Jews. The Japanese did not, they were pressurized by the Germans to take action against the Jews. They never did. They never did. They considered, the Japanese considered themselves close to the Jews, to a certain degree, as old people. And so we never had any problem with there was gendarmerie, there was this and that. But
nothing to do with your
nothing to do because we were Jewish.
Okay, but at the same time, you're going to a British school, and you're a Polish citizen.
British school was closed.
The Japanese closed it down.
The school closed down. That's why I went over to the Jewish school. I graduated from the Jewish school, the Tianjin Jewish school. In fact, my certificate, my graduation certificate from Jewish school.
And the Japanese don't, for example, they don't close Baytara down? They don't?
No. Baytara remains. The only difference in the Jewish school was that we used to have to take Japanese lessons. So they had a Japanese teacher. At first we had a very good-looking Japanese teacher. And then the king says, "Oh, you boys not good. I give you, instead of this son, a kutsu-san." He gave us a teacher. I'm the most ugliest person there was. Abe, yeah.
And so when the Japanese come, like you said, of course, it's different than before. I'm sure it's different.
It's different than before. It's not the same, but as a child, as a young man, I didn't feel it. Enough to eat. There was no harassment.
Okay.
Japanese like children always. That's a fact. And there were Japanese instead of a parade of the British soldiers, there was a parade of Japanese soldiers.
Big deal.
Big deal. For us, it was not.
And your parents were okay. They were.
No problem. I really had no problem. My sister worked before the war. She worked for Texas Oil. So Texas Oil, of course, was closed. So she stopped working for Texas Oil. After the war, she went back to Texas Oil.
Uh-huh.
But I don't remember. I cannot say anything negative. I mean, we saw the Japanese mistreating the Chinese, but in Tianjin there wasn't that, and where I lived. I mean, I know there was a massacre in Shanghai, in Nanjing, and there was maltreatment, and the Japanese did a lot of harm to the Allied prisoners, etc., etc.
Sure.
But you couldn't feel it I couldn't feel it in where I lived during the war. We knew there are enemies in the sense that we were pro-British and pro-American more than anything else, and we knew the war would end, or we hoped the war would end. We did get at that time, because the Soviet Union was not at war with Japan, so we did get Russian papers and Russian news. We knew more or less the course of the war, but very little of the Holocaust, a little of that.
I mean, you guys are so far away.
Far away.
Yeah.
At that time, you must remember at that time, there was no email, there was no nothing. There was no communication, there was no telephones.
Now, you told me before that your uncle and aunt and grandmother went back to the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And that sealed their fate, probably.
Well, it's like this. My uncle was put into a concentration camp immediately, or
Gulag.
Gulag. He died soon after. I don't know the exact details. My aunt, who was married my aunt was married, and my grandmother, they were in Moscow. My aunt was a well-known music teacher. In fact, I heard her over Radio Moscow after the war. But she didn't correspond.
What was her name?
Lyolia Ivanova. And she divorced her husband and married a Russian man, and had a child who my cousin, who I told her when I met her, and she was already 50 and I was 50, something like that. I said, "Do you know you're Jewish?" She said, "No, how am I Jewish? I'm Russian." I said, "You're a daughter of my aunt. If you're a daughter of my aunt, you're Jewish, and if you want to come to Israel, you're welcome." It took her some time to realize it. That you're Jewish, your son is Jewish, but your grandson is not Jewish anymore because... Anyway, I didn't have any, we didn't have any connection with my aunt after my grandmother died. My grandmother died somewhere after the war, just after the war. We didn't have any communication because they didn't want to say that they had relatives in China, or relatives abroad, which would mean, and after the war, my wife, who's from Harbin, had a big family in Russia. After war, when the situation in the 1990s, 91, 92, when the situation with Russia became better, and we traveled to Russia, we found my wife's relatives. And sometime later, I finally got contact with my cousin, but my aunt had died by that time.
Your aunt had died. She had died by that time.
Yeah.
So, during the war, excuse me, I'm going to ask you one more thing. Do you also remember, since you were living in this area with a lot of Russian, do you remember the German attack on the Soviet Union?
Oh yes, clearly. That was still before the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor.
Sure.
That was in June, June 22nd. I remember the date even. I think something like that. We clearly remember that Hitler attacked the Soviet Union. Soviet Union was not a country that we sort of looked forward to, although we had a Russian background. I hear Russian, I'm happy. You know the language, you know the books, you know the history, more or less, through my mother. My mother used to read. And Germany was the enemy, of course. So anybody against Germany was...
During the war, you're continuing, like you said, you moved to a Jewish school. British schools closed, you moved to a Jewish school. In this Jewish school, is there more of like...
No, I know what you're trying to say. The Jewish school had a curriculum very much like the grammar school. We studied in English, not in Hebrew, of course. We studied in English. We had the same curriculum for all the subjects. We studied English literature, English history. But we did have Hebrew lessons. There was 3 or 4 times a week Hebrew lessons. There used to be more of the Bible reading was more of the Old Testament than the New Testament.
Okay.
In the grammar school was the New Testament, here was the Old Testament, and it was a Jewish school. I mean, the headmaster was Jewish. I mean, all the teachers were Jewish.
Is there anything before I'm going to go now to after the war? Is there anything that you want to tell me about during the war? Any sort of incident or something that you remember? Something significant?
Look,
Baytara, David Raziel, he's killed in Iraq.
Yeah,
Okay.
we didn't know that. At that time, I didn't know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
David
yeah,
Raziel
yeah.
was killed in Iraq. That was, we had very, at that time there was very little
Communication
of
because of the war.
Etzel was not well known. Bitar, yes. Shlomo ben Yosef, yes. But I don't remember.
And do you guys have any news of what's happening in Palestine during the war?
No,
Nothing.
nothing. We knew
Nothing
nothing.
about
We
the
knew.
Stern Gang, nothing about...
Yeah, no, only after the war. It was very difficult. After the war, yes,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. But during the war, I didn't have the Moyne killing. Didn't hear of anything. Not that I can remember. I mean, maybe there was some mention. But again, as I said, the press was controlled. There was only news that the Japanese wanted to have news. We did, of course, we understood that the Japanese were losing the war. Towards the end of the war, it was clear because we had the Russian papers and we had clandestine radio.
radio?
Clandestine radio. You know what's clandestine? You don't know the word clandestine? Let's look in the dictionary. Clandestine, sort of, not official.
Okay.
I'll take out dictionary after to show you the
so
word.
you guys know that the war is going in the favor of the Allies?
Yeah, that was clear. We realized, we of course heard of the Normandy landing. I remember that clearly. We heard of the Normandy landing. It wasn't in the papers. We realized, but we didn't hear every battle and every this. The Russian battles, yes, we knew from the Russian paper. The Russian, Kursk and Stalingrad and the Russian. We had the Izvestia and the Pravda.
The siege of Leningrad, I'm sure you've
heard.
Because Russia didn't declare war on
But
Japan.
Joshua, I was
a teenager.
A teenager, interested in sport, playing volleyball.
And this whole time during the war, you're like, as you said, everything is normal with Baytara. You're still going to Baytara. You're still
Baytara is active. Like we still study Zionism and Herzl and Rapotinsky and everything else. But we didn't know Ben Gurion. I didn't hear him.
No. Now tell me, when I tell you, right, when I say to you, Sam, the war is over, what do you immediately think of? What's your first memory of knowing that the war was done and over?
Well, I tell you what, I was when the atomic bomb was dropped, I was on the seashore in Idaho. There was a seashore we used to go for summer vacation. I was there, and there was on that day a certain bad weather, funny weather, or this thing. Don't forget, it was not 100,000. We were only 1,000 miles away from Hiroshima, and we heard of the bombs, and we heard that the war is coming to the end. And we felt the war ended when there was a flyover of American airplanes over the city. I remember that clearly. First came a few Americans and British, mostly Americans, though I remember. But then there was a flyover of American P-40s and all the bombers. But during the war, the American Air Force was stationed in China, free China, used to fly over us to bomb Japan. And the Japanese could never open anti-aircraft fire because the Chinese told them, your shells only fall halfway, so you're going to kill more people on the ground and you won't shoot them down, they're flying too high for you. So we used to watch, clearly we knew that the war was coming to an end. But I would say for us, the major event, as I remember, was when the American Marine Corps took over our city. And that was October maybe, because in September, October, And we went to meet them, all happy. I remember we took food to bring to them, and somebody opened it.
I think it's September.
September, October, I don't remember exactly. And once somebody said over there, "My God, strudel!" So there were Jewish boys in the Marine Corps, and Quartermaster General was a Jewish boy. I served all through my army with American uniforms and boots and jackets.
You?
Yeah. They gave us all the...
Yeah, they gave you stuff and...
Yeah, which I brought to Israel, actually. And I remember till now I had the army boots.
And does life get kind of back to normal once the war's over?
Yes, went back. Was normal. We didn't have ever anything missing. So nylon stockings came back. Nylon stockings, or we didn't have any food missing. They had this Macy's magazine. We used to get the Macy's magazine, bring in stuff from the States. Friends, I mean, but Russia was closed, continued to be closed. The Russians occupied China until the Manchurian border. They didn't occupy where we lived. Where we lived, it was taken by the Americans, not the British, nobody else. It was the American first Guadalcanal, 1st Marine Division, 1st and the 3rd Marine Division, mainly the 1st Marine Division.
Okay.
Which stood me in good stead on my way to Israel. I'll tell you the story after.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a sec. When do you remember first hearing about what happened to the Jews of Europe? When did the rumors start coming?
I remember that I realized the Holocaust in the Jewish club. I can see myself. There was a newspaper from abroad or from Shanghai maybe, one of the first newspapers where they had a article about the Holocaust. I mean, and when the news started breaking, and that's when I actually would say in my clear memory that what had happened in Europe was 6 million people had been killed and refugees, etc.
So you remember hearing about it after the war?
After the war. No, I don't remember during the war. Maybe I heard about it, but didn't take it seriously. Nobody did take it seriously. Even in the United States, I don't know if anybody knew it about it.
Yeah.
But after the war, in China, I mean, after the war, it became clear. I don't remember if it was even before the end of the Japanese occupation, after the World War in Europe. I assume it must have been after the end of the Japanese war. Occupation. Because the Japanese kept control in China, because in China at that time there was already a war between the communists and the nationalists. The Japanese kept control until the Americans. They surrendered to the Americans. They gave it over to the Americans. Japanese. I remember clearly I was going on a train, because when the war ended, I was in, once again, because at that time, the Chinese and the communists were attacking a railway station.
I need you just to keep eye contact with me, very important. Okay. So you remember at this railway station?
There was communists and the Kuomintang attacked the railway station, and the Japanese were defending the railway station. That was already after the war was over, because they had agreed to hand over to the Americans everything. Yeah. Americans came, as I said, the 1st Marine Division came by boat. They were shivering cold because all of them were coming from hot countries, Okinawa, Guadalcanal, although they were northern Americans, but China at that time when they came, September, October, was already getting cool.
And so when the war is over, the Americans occupy the city that you're living in, but you find out about the Holocaust. I'm sure it has a big effect, big impact.
Of course.
And also at the same time,
we're already hearing about uprising in Israel. We heard about the Lord Moyne. I heard about this. I heard about what happened during the years of the war in Palestine, Eretz Israel at that time. Palestine, well, it's Palestine.
How old are you when the war is over?
45. I'm 17, not 17 yet, 16.
16.
Still a young fellow.
Young fellow, but you're a young
but we
adult.
were more. I feel we were more adult than the present generation. Maybe more adult. Lived through a war. We understood. I was myself. I like to read the newspapers very much. I remember myself always reading the newspapers, word by word. And of course, by that time, we already were clearly understood the need for a Jewish homeland, and already at that time, ideas I would go to the army, would go to Israel to go to fight. So that was long before the War of Independence.
Yeah, of course, and we're going to get to that slowly. Now, also at the same time in China, after the war, there was a civil war between the communists, Mao,
there was a
and
civil
Chiang Kai-shek.
there was a civil war.
Do you guys feel this? Is this a threat on the community where you live, in the city where
At
you
that
live?
time, you must remember, I left China first time in mid-1947. Mid-1947, the war was still in the north.
Okay.
It wasn't yet, it didn't spread across China. We knew there were Chinese communists. They were called the Palu, the 8th Army. And they used to attack the railroads, and they used to have American guards going on trains from Tianjin to Beijing. We heard that there was attack here and attack there, but it wasn't taken as a serious threat.
Okay, it wasn't like
It wasn't something that would happen tomorrow. It happened very fast. Even when I left China, the second time I was in Israel, came back to China, which was October 48, and that was about 3 or 4 months before China fell. We still didn't take into
China
account.
fell in 49, isn't that correct?
No, China was declared independent in 49, but the city where I was born, in Shanghai, fell in 49. You're right, 49. Yeah, 49.
So now that the war's over, and news is coming more fresh and more uncensored, you're getting news about what's happening probably around the world. What are you hearing about Palestine? What's the news that you hear?
We as Bitarim, we're hearing about the uprising of the Irgun.
Okay.
And I don't remember now because but we remember Dov Gruner and Arco Brisenbrin and Olea Gardom and Hakim and these are all heroes for us. I'm just too old to remember, but I knew it just now. But by that time, we were already saying to ourselves how we're going to blow up the British consulate in Tianjin.
Tell me about that. I like
and we made a layout, and we said how we get gunpowder. So he said, let's take the bullets and pour the gunpowder out of the bullets and collect gunpowder. We didn't really understand what dynamite was, but there was certainly a tendency to fight against the British all over. At that time, we were still playing sports, still playing ping pong, still playing this, but becoming more and more nationalistic, would I say, and becoming older.
So
teenage,
you want
17.
You want to fight. You want to fight the British.
Yeah, we want to join with our
Comrades.
brothers. And how do you get from China to Israel? How do you get from China to Palestine at that time? We didn't have passports that you could easily travel with. So I remember the formation of the idea. I had a very good friend of mine, name is Arya Marinsky. He was a lawyer, a well-known lawyer in Israel at one time. And we were sitting in the corner at night. His house and my house were equidistant from a certain corner. And we decided, he also had a Polish citizenship. He was actually born in Poland.
Wait a sec. Didn't you have to finish, you finished high school yet? No.
I finished high school during the war.
During the war you finished high school?
Yes. I finished high school in '43. I was very young. I was 15 years old when I finished high school. I was very smart. I jumped 2 classes.
Really?
Yeah. But in 45, in 43 I finished high school. I excelled at mathematics. I got a mathematics cup from my teacher. And my teacher happens to be the brother of my wife. Now. I mean,
wow, so you finished high school. So after the war, are you working anywhere?
I'm working.
Okay.
I'm working in a Jewish firm, an import-export firm, as a clerk.
Okay.
I used to do all the correspondence and because we could speak English, and most of the older Jewish Jewish population, their English was not that good. I mean, they went to Russian schools, or Russian was their native language. My father spoke decent English, but many of them spoke broken English.
So you actually had an advantage here.
During the war, I worked, but after the war, when they started importing from the United States, all the correspondence and all that was done by me in my company.
So that was a pretty good job.
Yeah, no? We imported. I remember we imported all kinds of stuff. So from at that time, my salary was $100 a month. That was a fortune.
Nice.
That was a fortune in China.
Absolutely.
A family in Harbin could live on $10 a month.
And how old are you? 16, 17 years old?
16,
not
17,
bad.
18.
Not bad.
I left China when I was 1947.
We're going to get to that in a second. And this whole time, everything in your family, your parents, your sister, everything's...
My sister gets married, the boy, who's 70 years now. He was born in 45, 70 years old. Everything is normal.
Okay.
No.
When do you start thinking, but really thinking, I am going to get out of here and I'm going to Palestine to join?
March 47, I remember that clearly.
What happened in March 47?
As I said, we were sitting with my friend with whom I actually left together China. Mm-hmm. He also had a Polish passport. He was a Polish citizen. We sat down and said, what are we here sitting and talking and making plays and speeches? All this is BS. It's not going to cause anything else. We need to make Aliyah. We need to get to Palestine and join the fight for freedom. Now, from China to go anywhere at that time with Polish passports was not easy. But we started working on this, and by August of that year, July of that year, we were already on a ship going to Italy.
Wait a sec. And I'm going to figure out how I want to ask you this question. May 1947.
March.
March 1947. March 1947.
I remember it was
right,
still...
March, sorry. March 1947.
That was when we actually had the first discussion. I mean, before they were talking, but serious.
Can't anybody in the Baytara movement in your city help you get to Palestine?
No.
Did you ask them?
We didn't ask. We did it undercover. My friend's mother, if she would have found out, should have never let them go. My parents were maybe more liberal, but still we kept, guys are crazy. He was from China to Palestine. You want to go to Palestine? Are you nuts? Or something like that. From China, you couldn't go from one city to the other city. You needed a visa. Going to, it was quite a, and at that time, the Baytara movement, both in Shanghai, had newspapers, were propaganda, were speaking, were talking, there were speeches, blah, 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 blah. So we said enough, blah, 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 blah. Let's do something action. We weren't thinking of big things, but I and you, will go to Palestine and fight. It was an individual issue. And there was nobody to help us. I mean, our idea was not very much founded. We said, how do we go? We got to Europe. From Europe, we got to Palestine. We can't go without Europe. And how do you go to Europe? With a passport, so somewhere I have my passport. I must show you. We went to the Italian embassy, got a visa, transit visa to France. We went to the French embassy, got a transit visa from France to Italy, and we left to Europe.
Wait, okay. How old are you? You're 19?
No, I'm not 19 yet.
18?
It's 47?
Yeah.
18.
17, 18. What do you tell your parents?
We're to Palestine to fight.
You tell them? Okay. And what do they say to you?
I don't know, you know. As a parent today, I wouldn't take that guy by his strap and make it sitting here. No, they didn't. My mother was very, of course, very much against it, but.
But you really feel inside of you,
that we must
very deep, that you need to be there.
Absolutely. Neither am I sorry for it now. But Yehosha, 18-year-old youngster, at that time, we didn't have the news, or we didn't have the knowledge that we have today. We didn't have the communication we have today. I used to, the best form of communication of the past was a night letter telegram. Sure. You remember 21 words with a certain price, that's it. There was no telephone, no faxes, no emails, no nothing at that time. And we decided to go, finally we decided to go. And my friend's mother, in the end, she had to concede. She was more possessive, very possessive.
But she didn't have a...
She didn't have a choice.
So tell me about your journey to Europe.
Oh. So on our Polish part.
And you guys have some money in your pocket, right? You guys are
We
okay.
had some money in the pocket, but more important, we had about 5 cartons of cigarettes, which in Europe was a fortune. But we had some money in our pocket, travelers check. At that time, maybe together we had $1,500, which today is, of course, gurnished, nothing. At that time, it was money. Unfortunately, we were pickpocketed once we came to Europe on the first day. So we had that visa. There was no, didn't go.
You have a visa. It wasn't hard to get a visa for Italy and France. Is that correct?
No, it was hard to get a visa. But we had a transit visa from Italy to France and a transit visa from France to Italy. I think it was we had a friend at the French embassy in Tianjin who was going around with a Jewish girl. Later on, he gave us, he helped us more. By that time, and we used this visa. We came to Italy.
What did you take a boat?
We took a ship,
From
a boat,
where?
from Shanghai to Naples. Shanghai to Naples. That was
Was it
about
like a month?
no. I think it was about 2 weeks or 20 days.
Okay.
At that time, the Suez Canal was still open.
You went through the Suez Canal.
Suez Canal.
Didn't you just want to jump off there and go straight to
No,
Palestine?
no, you couldn't do that.
I know, but didn't you want to?
No, we didn't have that idea. The idea for us was to come to Europe, and from Europe we knew you could get to Palestine. We weren't sure about how we were going to do it. We weren't fully aware of all the issues. But in any case, we left China. We had help in Shanghai. There are 2 books about about Shanghai. This book by Yudit Ben Eliezer. You know Aryeh Ben Eliezer? You ever heard the name of Aryeh Ben Eliezer? Or you didn't? That was before your time. He died in 1970.
No, I'm thinking of Elisha Ben Eliezer.
No, Aryeh Ben Eliezer was number 2 in the Herut party, number 2 to Menachem Begin.
Okay.
You must not understand. I knew Menachem Begin very well, of course, and all the Herut, all the Etzel hierarchy. So we come to Shanghai because from Tianjin we come to Shanghai. We stayed in Shanghai about 2 or 3 weeks getting the visas. And when we get the visas, we take American President Lines ship that goes around the world at that time. There still wasn't that flights. I don't know why we didn't go flights. You couldn't fly that time. So we went by.
I think commercial airlines were in their infancy at that time.
Yeah, they were. So we arrived in Napoli in August of 1947.
Hold on. Let me write this down. 47. And just remind me the name of the person you're traveling with.
Pardon?
The name of the person you're traveling with, your friend.
Aryeh Marinsky. Harry
Marinsky.
Marinsky. Marinsky, yeah.
Okay. So you guys arrive in Naples.
He wrote a book, by the way, Boar Bebeseter. He was a well-known lawyer afterwards. Okay. He worked with Tamir. There was Tamir, who was in the Knesset. He was in there's things before your time, in the Wadi Salib trials, where he was against Ben Gurion, various well-known trials. He was with Betty Carsfield, who was a Nazi, anti-Nazi. He was her lawyer.
I want to ask you something. In August of 1947, the situation in Palestine is really bad.
Bad.
Really bad.
We know.
This is after the King David explosion. I'm sure you remember that.
King David explosion, yes. It
was in 46, I think. You were still in China.
46.
That was huge. 100 people died, Jews, Arabs, British. It was like...
We're well aware. At that time we were quite aware of
Sure.
of the situation in the Yishuv.
Yeah.
We know of I suppose by that time we already know what the Mapai is, the Haganah is. And we understand that being Bitarim, we believe that the correct way is not Avlaga, but to fight against the British occupation.
And you also understand that there's also the Lehi.
Yeah, at that time we already know
that.
At that time
Yeah.
we were aware.
But you and Ali are focused on Etzel.
Etzel,
Baytara. Yeah.
Baytara,
And
Etzel, because at that time, I don't know if you know the name, Eliyahu Lankin. Eliyahu Lankin was also from China.
okay.
And he had escaped from the camp in Africa, and he was in Europe. He was head of the Etzel in Europe at that time.
We're going to get to that right now. When you get to Naples in August of 1947,
Yeah.
what's the plan?
The plan is to get in contact with Bitar and join the Bitar movement. We assumed there was a Bitar, and get hold of Eliyahu Lankin, because we know he's from China. We know his sister. We know his family. We know he's the leader of the Etzel. With him, somehow we get to him. And so we land in Naples without knowing anybody, a single person in Naples. We go to a hotel. And we said, okay, what do you do? We get to the rabbi. The rabbi knows everybody. So we found out who's the rabbino of Naples. So we go and find the rabbi of Naples. I remember we're going, he lived somewhere there up the hill. And we said, where's the nearest Jewish communities? And where's the Bitar community? So he told us Bitar, there's in Rome. The Bitar camp. All the different organizations had their camps.
Sure.
Bitar had a Machane, Shomer HaTzeir, and this had a Machane around the city.
And they were all working to organize refugees from the war
to get to them.
Right.
So he says in Rome. So we take a train from Rome with money in the pocket. My friend says, you keep the passports and I keep the money. Why? You keep the money because you'll be sure. Money, never mind, but passports are important. You keep the passports and I keep the money. Okay. So we went by train to Rome, and took a taxi. And the rabbi told us more or less what it was, Grota Ferrata. It was a Machane Bitar over there. We get to Rome, they pickpocket my friend, they take away all the money. However, we're left with at that time there were traveler's checks, so most of the money wasn't traveler's checks. So finally in the end we got the money back, but we had 5 packets of cigarettes, which was a fortune in Italy.
American cigarettes.
American.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Camels.
No, I don't think they had Marlboros. Camel. I believe they were camels.
Okay.
Anyway, we come to the Bitar camp and come to 2 Jews. Don't speak a word of Yiddish. Who are you? We're looking for Eliyahu Lankin. Who is Eliyahu Lankin? Don't you know who Eliyahu Lankin is? We don't know anybody who's named Eliyahu Lankin. So anyway, Jews from China, so there were many who spoke Russian. So the language of communication was Russian. But they assumed that we spoke English. We must be English spies. We spoke English as a language. Jews don't speak Yiddish. How come? Russian. Anyway, I said, okay, come back. You can stay in the camp. We're there. And meanwhile, they called Lankin and Lankin said, tell them asked them the name of my sister and where is she. So, how do you know Lankin? Was it through her sister? And what's her sister's name? It's Rocha. Rocha is not a common name. He said, listen, these guys are from China. I know, you can be sure. And so we go back to Naples to get our clothes and suitcases, and we come back to Grotta Ferrata, to the camp, the Baytara.
What's the camp called?
Grotta Ferrata.
Can you spell it for me?
Huh?
Can you spell it for me?
Grotto, Grotto Ferrata. That was the Pope's summer palaces.
G-R-O?
O-T-T-O.
Wait, slowly. G-R-O?
T-T-O. Grotto.
T-T-O. Grotto?
Ferrata. F-E-R-R-A-T. R-A-T-A, I think.
A-T-A. Okay.
That's next to the Pope's summer palace, summer residence.
Okay. So you get
we get there, and we stay there for a few days. I don't remember the timing at that time, and we're sent to the Etzel training camp in the north of Italy. There was a camp Villa Ferrigiano on the Lake Como, on the lake Maggiore, Lago Maggiore, in north of Milano, and a place called between Arona and Maina. And there's also another Baytara camp, with a villa. It was a villa with a huge grounds where there was a Baytara camp. And there we went through the first induction and
tell me about it. That first of all, this guy Eliyahu Lenkin. He's okay with you guys now.
He already knows who we are. You know, Lankin was the commander of the Altalena. He brought the Altalena in, Eliyahu Lankin. He was a member of Knesset also. He was a well-known fellow.
Okay, and so you go to Machane Imun, like something like that?
It's Villa Ferry. It's a Machane Imun, Bet Sefer.
And what do you guys learn there? Are you inducted into the Etzel?
Induction, that till arms training.
Are you sworn into the Etzel?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that.
And after that, I'll tell you.
Please.
We're in the camp in the north of Italy, and we started our course, and then one night, in the middle of the night, we're waking up. Go to over there, and you'll wait over there in the field until somebody brings us in and taken to a room, dark room where the light is on you, and there's a gun, a flag. You put your hand, you swear allegiance to Etzel and etc. That was a standard procedure that afterwards, when we set up Etzel in China, we did the same procedure to all the boys who came and are part of the Machel. And we became Etzel. And the course was 3 or 4. We came to Italy in August. The course was in September, October, because in November we went to Paris to meet with Eliyahu Lankin.
Eliyahu Lankin again?
Yeah, he was head of the Etzel, but the headquarters was in Paris.
So he was a big macher.
He was the head Etzel, all Etzel operation in Europe. And
we're going to get to that in a sec. I want to ask you about the months that you were in this training camp. Are you learning how to use weapons? Are you learning how to use
weapons? There was, they say, Imun Sadeh, Imun Sadeh Aleph, Imun Sadeh Kita.
So tell me about it a little bit.
Look, most of the people there were from refugees.
Sure.
So the course was in Yiddish, and we had a difficult time understanding Yiddish, but they were translating.
And you're still with Aryeh, is with you? He's still with you?
Oh, he's still with me all the time. I'm with Aryeh, we live together. More than a brother to me. He passed away, unfortunately, when he was very young. But we stayed together for nearly 3 years because we go back to China together, and we come back to Israel together. Not together, not at the same time, but nearly at the same time. We served in the army together, and we were very close friends. In fact, till this day, I'm very close with his sons, rather. That was a very uncommon friendship because we stayed. We were together 2 years. We slept in the same bed. We went to the same girls. We went to everything together.
Actually, that's something that I wanted to ask you about. Do you have a girlfriend at this time? Or there's no time?
No, not seriously.
No. Nothing
seriously. I don't want to tell about it, but my first girl officially is my wife.
So you're in this training camp in northern Italy. Learning about the Etzel, about fighting, about arms, about
conspiracy. About theoretic.
So there's a lot of theory and there's a lot of masi, a lot of
there's both political education.
Now at this time, the leader of your organization, Menachem Begin, is living here
underground, absolutely underground. The first time I saw his picture, I was shocked. I said, "This guy is a big fighter." But I was very friendly. We became very good friends with Menachem Begin. I mean, as long as he was in the opposition. When he became the leader of the country, I had less. But I was very friendly with what's his name? Oh God, my name's up. His assistant.
So let's get back to
Yechiel Kadishai.
Yechiel Kadishai, sure.
He's a very good friend of mine.
Yeah, he was we interviewed him.
Yeah, I have a book on.
We interviewed
Yechiel was the head of the Aliyah in Europe.
Yeah.
At that time, he was an Israeli.
Yeah.
So I knew him very well from there. And then, of course, as he became close to him, great fellow.
And tell me about, so you're in this training camp for a few months. While you're in this training camp, in November of 1947, there is the United Nations vote in the UN.
No, I am...
Where are you when that happens?
In Rome.
You're in Rome.
I'm in Rome.
Do you remember the date? Do you remember when it happened?
I remember Rome. We went to Titus, to the Titus monument at that time. There's a Titus, the Ark of Titus.
Okay.
So all the Bitarim, we went there, waiting for after the vote. I remember the vote quite well because, but that time I don't remember the exact dates now.
Okay.
If I'd sit and think about it, maybe I'd come across. But I was in Rome, and so it was after that's the air conditioning going up, and that was after our course in Villa Farigiano in the north. So we had come back to Rome for some reason or other, or maybe there was they want to make a gathering of anyway, I do remember us in marching or going in the Ark of Titus Ark, where there's inscription in Hebrew, and the joy of.
Do you remember like the celebration?
The celebration,
yeah. You guys were probably listening to it on the radio or something.
Yeah. I don't remember myself listening to a radio in Italy at that time, but
nobody had a radio.
We had information.
But it was an occasion. You remember it being an occasion.
Yeah, being an occasion.
You remember it being. Now.
Must have been.
You've been in Europe already for a few months.
I trying to recall what that after I returned, because from Italy we go to Paris, where we meet.
Okay, so this is after the course.
This is after the course, But I
now,
don't-
now you're in the Etzel, you've been trained,
Yeah.
and now you're sent to Paris.
Paris.
Who tells you that you have to go to Paris?
To meet with Eliyahu Lankin.
So you go to
Yeah.
Paris, Eliyahu Lankin. Okay.
We didn't know at that time, but I think it was a foregone conclusion at the Etzel that they'd send us back to China.
Why?
The Etzel never believed that the English would leave Palestine so quietly and so easily. And we were sent to China to form a terror cell, let's say terrorists today, to set a fighting cell. And I remember our instructor for what to do in China was Eitan Livni, Tzipi Livni's father.
He was also in China?
No, he was in Israel, in Europe.
He was in Europe.
Yeah, he was instructing us.
So wait, I want to go back. You get to Paris. You travel. Are you with Aria or just you?
All the time.
All the time you guys are
all
together?
this thing were
Utzli and Gut, like together.
twin, Siamese twins.
So you and Eitan you and Aria get to Paris, which is the headquarters. That's where the headquarters.
That was where the headquarters of the Etzel were.
Of course, also they're underground also.
Yeah, they were unofficial.
Yeah,
but I assume.
What happens in Paris? Tell me what happens with this meeting. Who's in the meeting?
We meet with Eliezer at Café de la Paix on the
Eliezer or Eliyahu?
Eliyahu.
You remember the coffee shop that you met at?
Yeah. He was supposed to be with a newspaper. We were supposed to be with that. But when we met each other, we didn't know. Hey, you guys, in Russian.
Have you ever met him before?
No. He left China in the early 30s. I must have been a kid.
So he's like older. He's like a mythological character for you. He's
the leader of the Ergun and this and.
You guys must be very nervous to meet him, or not nervous,
but people from China, they always have something to talk about. So, how's my sister? How's my this and then that? And then we go to lunch, and the first time I have cheese I remember in France, you have cheese after dinner. You eat cheese. nothing we're used to.
So you meet him in a cafe.
We're in the cafe.
Just the three of you, or just the three of you? Just the three of you are in this meeting?
Three of you.
Just the three of you.
There was no. I don't remember meeting in some hidden house. Okay. Maybe there was.
No, a cafe is a perfect place.
I don't remember where he lived. Maybe it never was disclosed and done.
Okay.
But we were in France a short time, and we were sent on a training course to Germany.
Wait. What happens in the meeting? What is the meeting
about?
Where
are you from? What's in China? How in China, etc. There was no. I don't remember any political discussion outside that.
But why did he ask you to come to Paris?
Because we were from China. It's something extraordinary. People from China come to join the Etzel. Not every day happens. Something unrealistic. Okay, and he was from China himself. He hadn't had any communication with China for 20, 30 years. And here are two guys from China, and we became friends. Actually, Eliyahu and ourselves became friends during later also.
So you meet him in Paris. Very casual meeting. Nothing really.
I don't remember that we discussed any world-shattering. That's just what going to do, what he wants to do, this political things. But
and what happens after Paris?
After Paris, we are sent to Germany for a further training course in what was it? In explosives. And
Explosives,
different. And there was a guy over there who was in the Russian army. He was an expert on dynamite and how to prepare bombs and how to prepare shells.
Do you remember how long you were in Germany for? Or?
Short period.
Short period.
Short.
Maybe a week or two?
Maybe 2, 3 weeks, maybe a month. Not that time. I can look up in the passport and see according to.
Now, don't you want to get to Palestine already?
Yes, I want to get.
The war has unofficially.
Yeah, I want to get to Palestine. So we go to. The way we decided to go to Palestine is to get a visa back to China. And then arrange our itinerary that from Europe we come to Palestine. Then we stay in Palestine. That is the concept. So I don't remember Paris or Rome. Anyway, we got the visa either in Paris or Rome. But we went to Rome, we went to one of the Chinese embassies. We came there and started speaking and said, no, China, what the hell? Who's going to give you a visa? Why do you want to go to China? No visa. So we decided a different tactic. We went to another embassy in Paris, maybe it was, speaking perfect Chinese. We want to see the ambassador in Chinese. Oh. Well, we want to go home. We came to Europe. We don't have any money. Our family is in China. I want to go home to my mother, father. Tak, tak, tak. Put these Chinese visas on our passport to go back to China. And then we bought a ticket, airline ticket.
An airline ticket.
Airline ticket from Lod Airport, Hong Kong, Shanghai. And because we said you can't get a ticket from, so we took a boat from Italy to Palestine, and from Palestine, we had the ticket. And so we came to the British Embassy, and at that time the British Embassy, visas for Iraq, visas for this, not only. We came to the British Embassy, dressed up very well, speaking perfect English, I mean, my God. And I don't know how to, we'd like to have visas, we're going back to China. Here, we need visas, let's see our route. It's Palestine, what was it? India, Palestine, India.
China.
Palestine, India, Hong Kong. All were given by the British Embassy, Hong Kong.
And India too at the time.
Yeah. So he says, why do you want to go to Palestine? There's a bloody war going on with the Israeli and the Jews and this. It's difficult. I said, we don't know. This is the ticket our parents sent us. So the ambassador, the consul says, okay, well, let know the commission that you're coming and take care of you. Yes, of course, do that, you know. And so where are your passports? The passports are in the hotel. So we'll come tomorrow. Okay. So we filled up the forms. We come tomorrow, I'll give you the visas. We come tomorrow, he said, but I thought you were British. Well, the Polish passports. I said, I thought you were British. He says, we're London Poles. You remember London Pole, from the Polish, oh yes, I understand. Tak. The visa on Palestine. Came out to Yehil and said, here's the place of Palestine.
To who?
Yehil, Kadisai, Yehil, his name was Kadisai.
He was with you?
He was in Milano.
Milano.
Yeah. So we came to visa to Palestine because he said, "You'll never get. How you going to get? You're crazy, you guys." And he had the visa to Palestine. I'm not sure it. I have it here.
Yeah, definitely.
And he said, so okay. So he said, oh, you're Polish, you're London Poles, I understand. So we got our visa stamped. That was late November or December
47.
47. And in February 47, February 48, we arrived in Palestine. Arrived in Palestine, arrived to Haifa.
Wait a sec. February, so you've been in Europe
For 6 months.
6 months. Who's giving, where do you have money from? Is the Etzel like taking care of you
Well,
guys?
look, in the camps we were fed.
Sure.
We were fed and.
Yeah, but when you have to go to Paris and you have to go to Germany.
Yeah, my parents, we had this $1,000. We got the money back.
Right.
We got the money back. $1,000 at that time was a lot of money. Then we had the cigarettes. So I don't remember exactly, Yeshua. I was asking myself, where did I get money? But we had the money from this, so we had.
Are you in any, this whole time you're in Europe, do your parents have, they know what you're up to, right?
They don't know I'm in Israel, they don't know this, they don't know, but they don't know I'm in Jewish camp, in the refugee camp, and I'm okay.
So they know that you're
But I used to write letters. Letter at that time.
Sure.
At that time, letter used to
3
take
weeks.
2 weeks, 3 weeks. All right. Once a month, send a NLT, but I would have a heart attack if my children. I wouldn't hear from them. For sure, I'd have a heart attack.
Listen, this is very exciting.
Yeah.
This is an exciting time. This is like, you are.
There's a time, United Nations here and there.
Now, at this time that you're in Europe, these 6 months that you spent in Europe. So basically, what you did is you bought a fake ticket to China.
Yeah, with the idea.
I have to stop over in Palestine and use that as an excuse to stay. Boom.
Yeah.
Because they're not letting anybody in now, the British. No refugees.
No.
So
People were surprised at that time. That was all the people in there on the Etzel. How did you get a visa to Palestine? Something. This was. I think
you showed it to Yechiel Kadisha. You said to him, "Look, here we go."
Here we go.
And probably Eliyahu Lenkin.
Lankin.
Probably said that they're Chinese. The boy, they can.
Oh, everybody knew by that time.
And tell me this. And so this whole time that you're in Europe, this 6 months, are you still getting information about what's happening in Palestine?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Baytara camp on a daily basis.
On a daily basis.
Daily, we know what's going. Everything we know. Akko break, this break, that break. The different problem. But I don't. You had at that time. I remember there was an American paper in Italy, the Rome Daily American or something, or Daily American that we would read continuously. But news, you had the Herald Tribune.
But the Etzel's main goal is to kick out the British.
Pardon?
The Etzel's main goal is to kick out the British. But the British are leaving. They're going to leave.
The Etzel was not sure that they're going to leave.
And I want you to tell me about this idea that they wanted to send you to China to organize a cell. Can you tell me a little bit about that? It didn't happen, did it? At the end,
it didn't happen.
But
There were
tell me about it.
two purposes to go to China.
Go back to China.
Go back to China. By the way, we of course protested very strongly. Well, we go back to China. We don't want to go back to China. We came to everybody. After 1 year of struggle, we came to it. Now you're going to send us back to China. פקודה זה פקודה, Begin אמר, אתם חוזרים לצין. Our contact in Israel was a young girl who passed away. Her brother was a long-time driver of Begin. He was his driver all the time. And Chaim Landau, the father of...
Uzi.
Uzi
Landau.
The father of Uzi Landau.
So whose idea is it to send you guys back to China?
Etzel.
Etzel. You
I don't know.
exactly.
I don't know.
But you're told that. Can you tell me about this just so that we can have it on the camera? Because I think it's a fascinating story, and then we're gonna end
we come to Israel with the idea of joining, becoming part of Israel, joining the Etzel, whatever it is. It's still February 48. That was the time of the Palestine, when the Palestine Post was bombed and the Jewish agency was this. We go through a course in Shuni. In Shuni there was a school, Etzel School for Officer School. Shuni next to Binyamina. There's it's still there. And we meet over there with a lot of Chinese, ex-Chinese who are in Israel. Amongst them, of course, Moti Olmert. Moti Olmert lived in Nachlat Zhabotinsky, which is next to the Binyamina, walking distance from Shuni. And there we become very close friends because every night we go with Harry. Everything is with Harry together. Ehud is 3 years old and pisses on my pants. That's what I remember. Ehud Olmert. I know him for many years, and unfortunately, I didn't believe until now. No way not to believe. His father was a farmer, straight like an arrow. Anyway, we're told, gentlemen, good that you have tickets to China. You're going back to China. Why we're going back to China is because we don't believe that the British will go to China, will leave Palestine. If they don't leave Palestine by the 15th of May, then there were a certain amount of actions we were supposed to take. Attack on the British aerodromes in Hong Kong and Singapore, sending dynamite onto British ships to blow up in the middle of the ocean, all kind of things that we say today, but that was the idea.
Wow, I never heard that.
And the third thing was to organize Altalena, or arm ship, from China. We had hands to purchase a Liberty ship, and with an American fellow from China who was born in China and was in the American Navy and was a captain on President Lyons. He was a captain on a passenger ship. He was willing to join us, and we were supposed to gather about a gdud, a battalion of trained soldiers from China, from the Far East, and from the United States who would join us, and go get arms in the Philippines. The American Army in the Philippines was pushing all the World War II weapons into the sea. And we could, for $100,000, the guy said, give me $100,000, take whatever you want. Whatever you can put on the ship, take. Tanks, machine guns, submachine guns, rifles, ammunition. And the idea was to take arms in the Philippines, take the ship, and land in Aqaba. Well, at that time it was Aqaba, there was no Eilat at that time. Umm Rashash. But we talked Aqaba.
Yeah.
To land in Aqaba and join forces. It didn't come to pass because of the Altalena. Once Altalena happened, the whole thing was canceled, and we start planning to come in small groups.
We're gonna get to that, but we're gonna stop for today.
Good.
We're definitely gonna stop for today. I wanted to tell you that your story is fascinating, and it's like just very, very, very fascinating.
You take that.
No, I'm gonna keep it on you.
No, I wanted to show you the passport.
Oh, you want to show me the passport? Hold on a sec. Please. Show me the passport, and then...
On the passport, you see I have probably dates.
wait. What you can do, here, I'm just gonna put this right here. Okay, I'll bring the camera closer so that we can do this properly. Okay, hold on. Yeah, it's good. Wait a sec.
Polish passport.
Wait a sec.
You see my name in the passport.
Wait. Can you show me the cover of the passport? Hold on. Wait a sec.
My kids want to get a Polish passport now. There's a Polish passport
Wait.
which says Miller, you see?
Wait.
Miller, Muller.
Wait.
Okay?
Wait, go back.
Okay?
Samuel.
No.
Nice. Okay, show me. Okay. Let's see the picture.
This is
Wow.
myself at 17 or 18.
Wait.
All right?
Yeah.
I need my glasses.
Absolutely.
This is the Chinese visa back to China.
Yeah.
No. This is a British Embassy in Rome, Palestine to China.
Let's see. There. Keep it there. It says British Embassy, Rome. Valid for only Palestine.
Yeah.
The date
In
is,
transit to China.
What's that? In transit to China. It says 22nd of March, 1948.
January. 22nd of January, 1948.
Oh, the date that it was issued.
Yeah.
And the date that it expires.
Expired. This visa expires
And
22nd of March.
And I see the passports and all of this, Hong Kong, and you're Polish, China, Hong Kong. Amazing.
This is Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And
Do you have your stamp from when you landed in Lod?
I landed not in Lod, in Haifa.
In Haifa, do you have a stamp?
I think this is it. I think February.
Let's see.
Government of
Wait
Government Department.
Wait. Can you flip it over? It's backwards. No, this is British Embassy. British Embassy.
This is the government of Palestine. See, this is the arrival stamp. And you see February 20 something.
Wait a sec.
February 18th.
Fascinating.
And then I'm in Palestine, and I have a government of Palestine entry and transit.
Let me hold that up for me so I can film that. Explain to me what this government of
This is the entrance visa to government of Palestine, Department of Migration, entry and transit, 14th of February 1948. Haifa. And this is the extension, Government of Palestine, extension. Right? We stayed over a month, we got the extension to stay till, I don't remember when.
Fascinating.
Okay?
Absolutely. Okay.
We got to Rome at that time. We had Palestine, Hong Kong, Pakistan, and India. Okay?
Yeah.
And this is the visa back to China. 中国. I can see we got it in Rome. They got it in Rome. The China embassy in Rome.
Fascinating. Very fascinating. Okay.
Here's a visa to Italy, a French visa to Italy, and an Italian visa to France. You see, in China at that time, you need a visa to travel from one city to another.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah. Here it says my passport, a visa, police to Shanghai. Yeah, Rome, all this is in Rome.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Now, outside of that, I have a Swaziland passport and
A
a
what?
Dominican passport.
What kind of passport?
Swaziland,
Swaziland. How do you get Swaziland?
Dominican passport.
Dominican
Yeah,
Republic.
yeah. I live in South
That's a story for
America.
another time.
South America, but this is all.
Okay. But I'm going to stop for now.
Yep.